Thank you for being here. The topic that I will be sharing with you guys today is about the federal LGBTQ policy changes and inclusion from the school curriculum. The lack of support for LGBTQ policies in the school curriculum has affected the safety of many students nationwide, both educational and socially. Therefore, there is a social need for increased advocacy and policy changes to support LGBTQ students and improve the school curriculum. As a first point, I want to talk about the concepts that keep students without safety, that are, for example, the lack of learn from society and in educational spaces, which have shaped or self-belief about LGBTQ students' perception, reflecting the complexities about human diversity. Many social issues at the same time have impacted the LGBTQ community in educational environments that often come from traditional belief, religious views, discrimination, and previous ideas of a stereotype. These factors have limited the progress of creating inclusive spaces and new policies. For example, currently, we have seen the many issues that are with the laws Don't Say Gay and the banned books that contain LGBTQ matters. At the same time, laws might not adequately address violence, prejudice, and inclusion of LGBTQ students. And what is the problem with this? The problems are the awareness that the students can have for advocacy and the policy changes that keep and perpetuate the problems of hate crimes against queers, for example, and transgender students, which have rise 4 times in the United States with anti-LGBTQ laws, something that I read about in Queer newspaper. In addition, creating awareness and fostering a more supportive and understanding school environment while introducing new policies for LGBTQ inclusion in the school curriculum, we can work towards to meaningful social changes that affirm the rights and identities for all the students. In some problems, the majority of the cases are that people might do not know about what is happening with LGBTQ students or what is happening with the LGBTQ policies. For example, I made a survey in Monkey app, and I see that the 60% of the audience respond that they might have a moderate knowledge about LGBTQ policies, while the 40% answered that they knew a little bit. Moreover, personal recognition often for LGBTQ students have impacted the education, culture, and the political ideologies that can lead to a student experience in the past from national newspaper publications. There is a social need for increased advocacy and policy changes to support LGBTQ students and improve the school curriculum. In fact, have shown us that 50% a moderate amount of knowledge about having heard of discrimination-related LGBTQ students, while 25% mentioned that they have listened a lot and 25% a little. This personal recognition and experiences of the LGBTQ students have impact on education, culture, and the political ideologies which are essential to creating policy changes. And in other cases as well, some of the students have said that they don't want me to exist, or they do not have the support that to could be in safety spaces in the school environments. Next, to talk about how the plans can be implemented, I think that we must be aware of the lack of support, first of all, of LGBTQ policies in the school curriculum that have affected the safety of these students. And for example, we might see that discrimination cases, for example, the Philadelphia Queer post in January this year to 2024, after fierce fighting extremist policies in Bucks County, coalition launches to help school boards across the state. This discrimination proponents have said that these laws defending them are necessary and upholding family values, asserting that the discussion of diverse sexual and gender identities will indoctrinate children to think such identities are unacceptable. Some consequences that we have about the lack of the implementation for LGBTQ laws might be seen in the cases of Benedict. This was a student that experienced harassment for their peers. He was beaten in the bathroom of the school. The teachers or no one from the school administration called the police or make a report about these incidents. Unfortunately, the kid died in the hospital during the next day, and none following by the police report was made. After almost 2 decades, 25 years ago, we have a similar case that was with Matthew Shepard, who was dead, brutally beaten as well, and left just in a fence, tied to a fence. So I think that these are big examples that can let us know about how critical is the lack of policies and the changes that we need, starting for the educational spaces. Who will address this? Well, these changes can be possible just while we are learning and sharing as well socially, and start to advocate for federal changes. In the CDC was published that LGBTQ laws for Joe are increased a risk for certain negative health outcomes. This means that transgender Joe are more likely to have attempted suicide than cisgender peers. And finally, to avoid the harmful and war tower will be thousands of students part of the LGBT community, we must talk about how changes in policy introduction in the school curriculum currently some might support that doesn't gay, the bans of the books, the laws that have no adequate address the violence and prejudice, and we might have to create awareness and foster a more supported and understanding school environment. In summary, the responsibility is from all of us. I think that we have to work toward fostering a more inclusive society, but first of all, we must prioritize introducing and accepting the LGBTQ policies in a school curriculum. Why? Because these concepts have enough relevance from the society and the educational spaces, which, as I mentioned before, have shaped the self-belief about LGBTQ students. There is a necessity for personal recognition of the LGBTQ students, which have impacted their educational, culture, and political ideologies as well. And the harmful and well-being of thousands of students part of the LGBT community also depend on the policies in the school curriculum, which have affect the safety of many students nationwide. Introducing new federal policies will be crucial in recognizing and valuing human diversity. Thus, we must accept and be aware of the urgent that we need for political climate change, bringing equity in those spaces for those students and the treatment and the opportunities that they can have. It will be only the way and the path that we can have for cultivating safety spaces and to creating a model where all students can be seen equally. Thank you for seeing this presentation, and I hope that you have learned something from here. And as I said before, just be aware that the things that we share socially as well are important, and we need you for these important changes. And the last page, well, I'm leaving just the reference for the resources that I use for this presentation. Thank you.